Back, everyone. Next, I would like to introduce you to Gerry Proehl, founder, chairman, president, and CEO of Dermata Therapeutics, Inc., which trades on the NASDAQ under the symbol DRMA. Now, prior to starting Dermata, Gerry was a founder, president, and CEO of Centaurus, Inc. for 14 years until selling Centaurus to Salix Pharmaceuticals for $2.6 billion in January of 2014. So happy to have you on the conference today. Gerry, how are you?
Great, Anna. Thank you very much for the kind introduction.
Wonderful.
Dermata Therapeutics is a dermatology company. I'll give you a little bit of overview of the technology and then get into more detailed discussion of some of the clinical studies that we've been involved with. Obviously, I will be making some forward-looking statements, so I refer you to our SEC filings. As I mentioned, Dermata is involved both in medical and aesthetics dermatology. We have a really unique multi-use topical platform technology that uses a freshwater sponge to be able to deliver products into the dermis to treat a variety of diseases. We've completed a phase 2 clinical study for once-weekly treatment of moderate to severe acne with excellent results. And we've just initiated a phase 3 study in moderate to severe acne in December of last year. We expect to have that study completed with enrollment by the end of this year with top-line data first quarter of 2025. In addition, we've completed a study in psoriasis with about 30 patients with some very interesting results, and we plan on down the road to do some more work in psoriasis. Our other product, DMT-410, is actually using part of the sponge product to deliver botulinum toxin, or what you might know better as Botox, into the dermis to treat a variety of diseases. And again, this would be topical delivery of botulinum toxin. We've done phase 1b proof of concept studies both in axillary hyperhidrosis with excellent results and also in facial aesthetics. And I'll talk more about these particular studies in just a little bit. The team that we have is small but very experienced. As Anna mentioned, I spent about 14 years actually in large pharma before I moved to Centaurus to help start that company and then sold it to Salix Pharmaceuticals. Maria Munera worked with me at Centaurus until we sold the company to Salix. And then she went on to work as Senior VP of Regulatory and Quality at Receptos prior to them selling their company to Celgene for a little over $7 billion. Carrie Van Hoos has been our Chief Financial Officer. She's been involved in biotech for about 25 years. She was at both Acadia and also Tega Therapeutics prior to coming to Dermata. And Chris Nardo, who's our Senior VP of Chief Development Officer, actually came from Allergan, where he was involved both with developing Botox for a variety of medical conditions and also involved in their medical dermatology division, setting up clinical studies. Our board of directors have all been involved with starting up small biotech companies, many of whom were involved also in selling some of those companies. As far as the markets, I'll talk about 3 different markets. The acne market, and interesting, it's a very large market. 50 million patients per year have acne. The nice thing about the acne market, it's not going away. As there's more kids that have acne, there's more need for new products. Currently, there aren't a lot of new products in development for acne. Most of the products that have been approved here recently are really new formulations or combination of already approved products. Our product, DMT-310, would be the first once per week acne treatment. And we think it will really change the way the doctors and patients are treating acne. The second area is facial aesthetics. Certainly, there's a lot of use of botulinum toxin or Botox in facial aesthetics, probably about 7 million injections per year in the US alone. The difference is we're actually talking about delivering botulinum toxin topically, not by injection. It's going to be less painful for the patient, and you're also going to be able to get broader coverage. And the last is hyperhidrosis. There are quite a few patients that in the US that have hyperhidrosis. many of whom are not yet diagnosed. It's a growing market. Botox makes up about 40% of the market. Unfortunately, to use Botox, you have to get somewhere between 10 to 20 injections in each axilla or armpit. It's painful and it's time consuming for the physician. Our product, again, would be applied topically. There's really no pain involved. It can be done not only by a physician, but a nurse or an esthetician. So we think it's a real advancement in the treatment of axillary hyperhidrosis. We also think our product could be used for palmar or plantar hydrosis, so sweating of the palms or on the bottom of the feet, where injections of Botox would not be used. So what is our product? It's a spongilla-derived product. It's a natural sponge. It has multiple components. You can see on the top here, these spicules, they're needle-like spicules. They're microscopic, so you couldn't really see them, but they're about 150 to 300 microns in length, which means they're long enough to penetrate the top layer of skin, the stratum corneum, and get into the dermis, where they can deliver then other molecules that can have a variety of effects. We know within our sponge, we have both anti-inflammatory effects. So we actually block a number of inflammatory cytokines, including IL-8, which is very well known for causing inflammation in acne, and then IL-17A and IL-17F, which are inflammatory cytokines that have been implicated both in rosacea and in psoriasis. In addition to having anti-inflammatory activities, the sponge also has antimicrobial properties. So when we strip out the spicules and use just the organic matter, what we find is we're able to directly kill C. acnes, which obviously are the driving force in causing the large lesions that patients that have acne suffer. And the last thing we were able to find is we have an effect on reducing sebum production, the oiliness of the skin that you see in patients that have acne. And we do that by inhibiting lipogenesis in the sebocytes. So we have a variety of ways to be able to treat these patients that have moderate severe acne. Let me talk a little bit about why we think DMT-310 could be really a real advancement in the treatment of acne. Number one, the current products are going to be used at least once or twice a day. Our product is very unique in that it only requires once weekly application of our product. So a teenager could apply our product, let's say Sunday night. They leave it on for about 10 to 15 minutes. They wash it off and they're done for the entire week. It's easy to remember and it's very effective. What's even more important is time to treatment effect. So we know through our clinical results, which I'll show you in a little bit, that we see significant efficacy after only 4 applications. Typically, topical products like retinoids might take 6 to 8 weeks of once a day application. So you're talking about 40 to 60 applications before you start to see the effect on your inflammatory lesions, whereas you're talking about 4 applications for our product. And the last thing is tolerability. The current products, benzoyl peroxide, retinoids, they have very poor tolerability. So the patients actually are applying these products once a day. They're getting a lot of problems, burning, stinging, itching, skin peeling, and they're not getting the efficacy they're looking for. With our product, we have very good tolerability and very rapid onset of action. It's pretty simple. You take our powder, which is in a pouch or a sachet, you mix it up with 6 mLs of hydrogen peroxide, and then you just rub it on like a face mask, leave it on for about 10 or 15 minutes and wash it off, and you're done for the entire week. Let me talk about the phase 2 results because I think they're really significant. Again, this was about 180 patient study in moderate severe acne. We had 2 treatment groups, placebo and DMT-310. The patients were 12 years of age or older at 14 US clinical sites. The patients had to have an IGA or Investigator Global Assessment score of 3 to 4. That means moderate to severe acne. And again, it was once weekly application. There are 3 endpoints that are required for the treatment of acne: absolute reduction in inflammatory lesions, non-inflammatory lesions, and an IGA. And you have to have a 2-grade reduction and get to a 0 or 1. So if you're a severe patient, you're actually getting a 3-grade reduction. You can see in the bottom here, treatment adverse events, very few. We get some application site erythema or redness. It's transitory. It might last a few hours. So if you do it before you go to bed, when you wake up in the morning, the redness is gone. Other than that, there's very little overall effect. Here's the local tolerability. You can see here the 4 things we measure: erythema, redness, dryness, scaling, and stinging and burning. First, I'll point out there's no severe adverse events. So that's really important. And most of the tolerability is mild, as you can see here, and not very different from placebo. So it's a very well-tolerated product. But even more importantly, it's a very effective product. You can see in the top graphs are inflammatory lesions. On the left is the mean change from baseline, the number of lesions. And on the right is the percent change from baseline. I'll point out a couple things. If you look at these 4 graphs, you'll see at every time point we're statistically significant. That's really important. When you're talking about a study that had 180 patients and our phase 3 will have 550 patients, that's very good power from a statistical significance standpoint. The other thing I'll point out that was pointed out by a number of our investigators, you can see here percent change from baseline and inflammatory lesions. At day 29, this is after 4 applications, we had almost a 50% reduction in inflammatory lesions. That means on average, these patients are seeing almost half their inflammatory lesions, those big, bright inflammatory lesions, go away. That's really important for compliance down the road and overall efficacy. The other third endpoint is IGA, or Investigator Global Assessment. This is probably the most difficult one to match because it's an amalgamation of basically the dermatologist looking at the patient, not only looking at the lesions, but looking at the skin quality and determining whether or not the patients are really improving. You can see here, even starting at day 29, we're statistically significant. But most importantly, you can see at day 85, which is 12 weeks, the end of the study, we were almost at 45% efficacy with a p-value of 0.001. So it's really good efficacy on IGA and gives us a lot of confidence moving into the phase 3 study. As I mentioned earlier, the phase 3 study, which we call STAR1, was initiated in December of last year. We'll have about 550 patients enrolled in this study. I'll point out a couple things. Number one, all of the endpoints are exactly the same endpoints that we had in the phase 2b study. It's really important that you have the exact same endpoints. The duration of the study is exactly the same, which is 12 weeks duration with 1 weekly application. The only difference in this study is when you move from phase 2 to phase 3, the FDA requires you to go down to patients that are 9 years of age or older. We won't have very many patients that'll be 9, 10, or 11. Most of them will be, some a little bit younger, some a little bit older. But we'll have a few patients maybe that'll be in that range. So that's important that all of the endpoints, though, are the same. Let me talk a little bit about DMT-410. I mentioned DMT-410 is really allowing our product to deliver botulinum toxin, or what you might know as Botox, topically into the dermis to have a number of effects. So it's pretty simple. Our product is basically rubbed onto the face if you're doing facial aesthetics, or on the axillary armpit if you're doing axillary hyperhidrosis. We wash our product off. You can see here the purple are all the tiny spicules that create these micro channels in the skin that allow us then to topically apply botulinum toxin or Botox and get it into the dermis. And basically, once you do that, it blocks a protein called SNAP25 that then has a number of effects. It blocks acetylcholine production, which blocks sweat production. It also blocks sebum production, that oiliness of the skin. And I'll talk a little bit more about the results of our couple of our proof of concept studies. I mentioned we did a study in axillary hyperhidrosis, which is excessive sweating under the armpits. This is a proof of concept study. It was an open label 2-arm study. We wanted to test whether or not the hydrogen peroxide would have any effect on the Botox. So we did one axilla with hydrogen peroxide and DMT-410. We did the other armpit with sterile saline. What we found down here was that there was no difference. So we know we can continue to do more work with our traditional product, which is used in hydrogen peroxide. There were 10 adults in the study, and it was 4 weeks duration. It's very simple. We applied our product, washed it off, topically applied botulinum toxin or Botox, and then we had the patients come back after 4 weeks. So it was one application. And we looked at a number of endpoints, patients that had greater than 50% reduction in sweat, percent of patients with sweat production of less than 50 milligrams, and percent change in sweat production. You can see on the bottom left here, we had excellent overall response rate between 75 to 85%. This is very similar to what Allergan found in their phase 3 Botox studies, where they injected patients between 10 to 20 injections in each armpit. And again, as I mentioned earlier, it's important to point out that that's very painful for the patient. It's very time consuming for the dermatologist. We believe our product would be less painful, certainly for the patient, with really no adverse effects. And it would also be less time consuming for the dermatologist. In fact, we think that a nurse or an esthetician could also do the application, since it doesn't require any injections. We also did a phase 1B facial aesthetic study. Again, we were looking at a number of endpoints. What we're really trying to figure out is, could we get Botox into the dermis, which then would have a number of effects. And so we basically applied our product, washed it off, applied Botox per the label, 64 units per label. And we assessed patients at 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, and 16 weeks. You can see in the upper right, there were very little adverse events. Really, the patients did very well on this product. It was very well tolerated. The endpoints, really what we're looking for, was reduction in fine lines, pore size, and sebum production, and improvement in the look of the skin. And that's exactly what we found. We didn't see any distal spread of the toxin, which is really important from a safety perspective. And we saw really nice improvements in luminosity, brightness, and global aesthetics. We also saw a reduction in pore size and number, reduction in sebum production, the oiliness of the skin, and reduction in fine lines. We think this application, topical application of botulinum toxin, would really be complementary to how botulinum toxins or Botox is being used currently. Because the way they're currently used is you inject into the muscle, either in the forehead, the glabella, or lateral canthal lines. And when you inject into the muscle, you paralyze the muscle and reduce deep lines. What we're really talking about is reducing pore size and number, reducing fine lines, reducing sebum production, improving the look of your skin. So it would be the entire face that you would treat, and it would be complementary to how Botox is currently being used. So let me finalize by talking about what we're really looking at. So we've got the moderate to severe acne study ongoing. As I mentioned, we expect to have last patient last visit in December, with results first quarter of 2025. We will move forward down the road with work in moderate severe psoriasis. And we expect to look to partner with a botulinum toxin company so that we can continue development of DMT-410 for a number of both aesthetic and skin diseases. We also think once we have demonstrated that we can deliver botulinum toxin, which is a large molecule, into the dermis, it potentially would allow us to deliver other large molecules topically for things like psoriasis, for dermal fillers, hyaluronic acid, and potentially even the ability to deliver vaccines using our product. So with that, I'll complete my presentation and open it up for questions, Anna.
Great job. We do have some questions for you. Let's start with explaining a little bit more about why you think DMT-310 will be successful in the phase 3 study.
You know, as I mentioned earlier, it's really important when you're moving from phase 2 to phase 3 that the design of the study, the endpoints of the study are all the same. You don't want to change anything in the clinical study other than the size of the study. And as I mentioned, we were highly statistically significant with 180 patients. We're now moving to a phase 3 study that has 550 patients. And the only requirement from the FDA standpoint is to get enough patients to demonstrate good safety. That's why they require us to go up to 550. But from a statistical standpoint, it gives us great confidence that we'll be able to demonstrate statistically significant results in the phase 3 study.
And if and when approved, how will you differentiate DMT-310 from currently approved products on the market?
So in acne, in treating moderate severe acne, almost every dermatologist is going to start with a topical product. The current topical products are benzoyl peroxide, retinoids. They're the most frequently prescribed, or combinations of those things. The issue with those products is a patient has to treat themselves once or twice a day. They get a lot of tolerability issues, burning, stinging, skin peeling. And it takes about 6 to 8 weeks for a retinoid to really start to see their effects on inflammatory lesions. Those are all reasons why patients stop using products to treat moderate to severe acne. Our product has a number of advantages. The first is, I mentioned, once a week. It'll be the first once a week product. Anybody that has a teenager knows trying to get them to do something once a day is pretty difficult.
Right.
And certainly doing it once a week, they can do it Sunday night before they go to bed, is very easy to remember. The second thing is, we know after just 4 applications, you see almost a 50% reduction in inflammatory lesions. That's motivating for them to continue to use the product. It has really good tolerability, so they don't have to worry about all those side effects they see from benzoyl peroxide or retinoids. And the last thing is, a lot of patients want to use a natural product. They want to see efficacy, they want to see good safety, tolerability, but they love the fact that this product is a natural product that they can use.
Absolutely. Let's move over to DMT-410. Why do patients need it if they already have Botox as a treatment option?
So as I mentioned earlier, Botox and some of the other botulinum toxins are typically going to be used for facial aesthetics. They're going to be injected. So what you're doing is you're injecting the botulinum toxin directly into a muscle, and you're paralyzing the muscle. And it's typically going to last from maybe 3 months to maybe up to 6 months. And so you're going to take care of deep lines. That includes forehead lines, glabella lines between basically the bridge of your nose, and lateral canthal lines. Those are the very deep lines, but there are a lot of patients out there that would like to reduce pore size. They would like to reduce their fine lines, reduce sebum production, oiliness of skin, and just improve the look of your skin. Our product would be applied topically. We'd apply it to the entire face, and we could do all those things, reducing fine lines, reducing pore size and number, improving the look of the skin. So it'd be very complementary. A patient might go in to get injections of Botox or botulinum toxin, followed by topical application of our product for facial aesthetics. Also for hyperhidrosis, I mentioned, it's really interesting in that you could apply our product whether you have axillary hyperhidrosis. It's less painful, less time consuming for the dermatologist. But also, many patients have hyperhidrosis of the palms or the bottom of their feet, either palmar or plantar hyperhidrosis. You wouldn't want to use injection of a Botox, because if you hit the muscle, you'd paralyze the muscle, which would be a problem with your hands, your feet. We think our product could be rubbed onto the palms or the bottom of the feet, would have certainly less chance of having any type of paralyzing of the muscle, but still be able to reduce sweating that you would see either in the palms or the bottom of your feet.
Fascinating. A question from Kyra Van Hoos. Kyra says, I think my teenager would prefer once a week acne treatment. So where can she learn more about the phase 3 clinical study?
So you can go to our website and learn more about the phase 3 study. Also on clinicaltrials.gov. All that has our clinical trial up there. I'll tell a little bit more about the study. And they also, if someone wants to get more detail, they certainly can reach out to me. There's my email. I'm happy to set up a one-on-one call with anybody that wants to learn more about either the phase 3 program or our development programs in general.
Perfect. Kelly Owen asks if the topical delivery method speeds up any approval process.
The typical development of any type of product, whether it's topical or injection, is going to be pretty similar. You have to go through phase 1 study and then move to phase 2. demonstrate safety and efficacy in phase 2 and then move into phase 3. So the timing is going to be very similar. I do think that topically applying a product is going to be more attractive to more patients. Certainly there are patients out there that might be interested in improving their facial aesthetics but don't want to get injections in their face. But having a topical application might improve and accelerate enrollment in the clinical studies.
We have a few questions from Ed Lambert. First is, why do you think there have not been many companies developing new products for acne? We'll start with that.
You know, I think the products that are out there are fairly effective, but they're not very tolerable. And so no one's really been able to come up with a good way of treating patients that have excellent efficacy and really good tolerability. As I mentioned, I think, you know, we found this product to be very effective, but the most important thing to me, I think, is the fact that it's once a week. Because if you came out with another once-a-day product, you're probably not going to get much interest from either dermatologists or the patients. But I think coming out with a once-a-week product that's a natural product could really create a paradigm shift in the treatment of moderate severe acne.
And that's Ed's second question, stating how yours is 1 per week application, which is very appealing and affects in 50% of the time. So how many cases have been studied, and is this the average?
Yeah, so all of our clinical work we've done has all been a once a week application. So we know this product is very effective. And as I mentioned before, it works very quickly too. And that's important for compliance. If you want a teenager to keep using your product, they want to see effects on their inflammatory lesions. They want to see those big, bright red lesions start to go away. And knowing that they'll see almost a 50% reduction after just 4 applications, we think is going to be very motivating for patients that are using our product. And that's why I think we will create a paradigm shift in the treatment of moderate severe acne.
Tom Lynch wants you to talk about Spongilla and what other applications is this used for, and what do you do to transform it into your product? Talk a little bit about what that production looks like.
Sure. So we have to take this sponge. We basically do significant processing of it to get it into a fine powder. We have to do something called terminal irradiation. So in the FDA guidance called 1111, they require you to make sure there's not any type of bacteria, anything that could be an infectious type product in your product. So we terminally irradiate it to make sure it's safe before we actually apply it to a patient. And then we package it up into, I said, sachets or packets. We put it in with a bottle of hydrogen peroxide in a mixing bowl. And it's pretty simple. You just open up the packet, put it in the mixing bowl, pour in the hydrogen peroxide, mix it up, and you can apply the product with just a couple fingers throughout your entire face, or even if you're doing the axilla, same thing.
And Eric Mullins asks if you're applying Botox in a different manner for different ailments, and what will this look like in production and sales? Would a license agreement be required?
Right. So we don't currently have a botulinum toxin. We're currently talking with a number of companies that have botulinum toxins either on the market or in development. And what we would do is we'd look to license their botulinum toxin for topical applications. Now, I mentioned in the clinical studies, it was us using our product, applying our product, washing it off, and topically applying Botox. We think as we do a license agreement, we have the potential that we could actually take our product, mix in the botulinum toxin, and do 1 application. And that's something that we would do once we have the license agreement and could do more kind of proof of concept studies. The other way we would do it is potentially take the liquid botulinum toxin, make it into a gel formulation. We would apply our product, wash it off, and then take the gel formulation and topically apply the gel botulinum toxin.
Wow, important stuff you have going here. Gerry, can you tell us a little bit about how people can get a hold of you and some closing remarks for our viewers today?
Sure. You can see my email address is gproehl@dermatarx.com. Feel free to email me. Happy to get on a call with anybody, talk a little bit more about our programs and timing of when we think the development will move forward. Again, I think in the acne space, there hasn't been a lot of excitement because there haven't been a lot of new products. It's been old products, combination products, pretty much the same thing that's been done year in and year out. This really will be a major advancement in the treatment of acne. We think down the road we'll be able to topically treat mild to moderate psoriasis. And obviously, once we get a partnership with the botulinum toxin company, we think we'll really open up the market for both medical and facial aesthetics.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being on our conference today. We'd love to follow you along in your journey.
Thank you, Anna. I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, everyone, stay with us. We'll be right back.